Hi, and welcome to the Bandwich Tapes. I'm Brad Williams. When I started this podcast, I never imagined that it would give me the opportunity to sit and have a conversation with some of my musical heroes, one of which is today's guest. On this episode, I'm speaking with the amazing Arnold McCuller, vocalist for James Taylor, Phil Collins, Lyle Lovett, and many, many more. I've seen him quite a few times over the years, and I'm just blown away with his talent, his stage presence, the way he delivers a lyric and captures the emotion of the song. But now I'm in a new phase of my life, which leads me to have a deeper appreciation of him as he's a recovery coach, and I'm almost 12 months sober. So we talk a lot about that, his story of sobriety, and starting a new chapter as a sober musician. I had such a wonderful time talking with him, and I know that you'll gain a lot from his words, as I certainly did. So I hope you enjoy my conversation with the incredible Arnold McCuller.
Oh, yes, I am. I just saw a baby wandering solo down the street. Then I saw a man who looked like Jesus smile at me. Made me a witness. Witness. I'm a living witness. Witness. I was rescued just in time, saved by a passing car. Jesus on a video shoot, walking down Sunset Boulevard. I'm a witness, yes I was. Witness, I'm a living witness. Witness. When the light kindness gives me faith in humankind, made a wish to save the world, that man came alive. Little superhero said he's gonna save the world. Made me a witness, yeah.
It's a pleasure. I can't even put into words how honored I am to get to sit and talk with you for a while today. And just thank you for joining me on the podcast. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for reaching out to me. You know,
Yeah.
It's just sometimes you feel like you're forgotten when you've left the industry and moved away from the big city.
I'm primarily a singer, and I have a list of singers that I look up to more than anyone, and you're near the top of that list. So it's an honor to be sitting here with you today for a number of reasons, both as a musical hero, but now as I'm learning more about your new journey as a new hero of mine, what you're doing in the world of recovery. I just thank you for that. Where did music start for you?
It started in Cleveland. My first professional style, I guess, singing job was out of the church into a choral group called the Choraliers, I think they were called. No, that was the high school group. Never mind. The Prestonians. I was in two small groups, ensemble groups. The Choraliers were out of high school. Prestonians were out of church, and Earl Preston was the minister who brought us together. There were like maybe 11, 12 singers who did beautiful a cappella arrangements and stuff, and basically religious stuff that we performed for small groups and house parties and things like what we call house parties now. And that was really professional work. Started out singing in the church and being a church soloist and then working out of high school with the Cleveland Orchestra Chorus, and I was one of the members of the chorus, and I did a lot of work there. I was under the direction of Leonard Craviel and Robert Shaw at the opening of the Blossom Music Festival in Cleveland, outside of Cleveland, where I later ended up playing doing hair, and the broader musical hair, and then again playing there with James Taylor. And I actually got to tell James, I actually said it in a video, I played here before you did. So it was cool.
I grew up in Atlanta, so have a lot of experience of Robert Shaw with the Atlanta Symphony and the Atlanta Symphony Chorus.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like working under Robert?
It was breathtaking. I'd never seen a big professional conductor like that, and seen him just have the orchestra and the chorus and the entire book in his hands. And it was I cried. I distinctly remember being in the middle of the chorus in the tenor section. The tenors were right in the middle, sopranos and altos were on the outsides, and just being in the middle of this sound was overwhelming. Clearly too much for the psyche, too much for the body to contain, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think some of the recordings of him conducting, it's as good as you could ever hear. The music he was able to pull out of an ensemble is like no other. Amazing that you were able to work with him. Was your plan to be a classical singer, or did you want to go the commercial route with it?
No, I wasn't planning any of it. I was just doing it,
Yeah.
I wasn't building a career, I wasn't pursuing this. Everything that happened to me just sort of was the universal path, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I was working for the Erie Lackawanna Railroad. My dad and I had a fight, and I moved out. I was 18 years old, turning 19. And a good friend of mine who was a dancer, had been trained as a dancer, said, I'm going to auditions for the Broadway musical Hair. They're holding auditions, and they're hiring people to go on this tour. This is the beginning of a national tour. You know how the big national tours come, and they sit down in a city, and those kids have basically set up home wherever they sit down. So I was hanging out with some of these kids who were living downtown in Cleveland, and they were very supportive of me coming and being a part of it. So my dancer friend, took me to the audition, or insisted that I come with him to the audition, actually. And he said, just come and sing something. You'll be great. They'll love that. So I took a piece of music. I took Bridge Over Troubled Waters. And I distinctly remember, standing there, skinny little kid in a blue pants and a blue shirt, and sang that song. And they said, can you do a soft shoe? And they showed it to me. And I said, yeah, I could do that. And so some, not dance training, but a sense of my body, they said, you're hired. And I was the only black person they hired that day. I was also the only, one of 4 people that they hired. 2 of the other people came down from Detroit, who were in the Detroit company. They came down to Cleveland to audition for this company so that they could do the tour. And one other girl from Cleveland. So there were 2 of us, only of 200 people that auditioned. They got hired out of Cleveland. And the 3 of us, my friend David Lassie was out of Detroit.
Oh, wow.
He came down. Yeah. David came down. That's when we met.
Really?
That's when I first started. We were hired at the same time, and immediately they put us in the ensemble. Me singing Aquarius, and David and I singing the duet of What a Piece of Work Is Man. And so that was the beginning of my professional career. Nothing I was looking for, nothing I was, reaching for, dying to have. It was literally the way God planned it, or the way that the universe wanted me to, it's crazy.
Yeah. Did you just, the moment you started doing it, you're like, yeah, this is it. This is what I want to be doing.
Well, it felt right. And I was getting the encouragement from the other cast members. The audience responses to the stuff I was doing was good. I was singing with people who had been singing a while, and some who were straight out of the church or straight out of school, some who had been studying music all their lives, some who had stopped doing their careers as doctors or lawyers to do this Broadway musical. It's weird. They just, they just wanted to do it. And I was with some great people. And it was definitely a school. It was a version of college for me. So, I didn't go to Kent State. This was 1968. I wasn't there, and I should have been there for the riots, the Kent State riots. I would have been there because that was my intention, was to go to Kent State. And my father and I had a disagreement, and I didn't go. I didn't go to college. I ended up going on the road and studying there.
Yeah. And, you may not be sitting here today.
Who knows? I could have been running from, firing bullets flying. Who knew? I don't know. But, later on down the line, I ended up meeting David, and David Crosby was a dear friend. And Stephen Stills and Graham Nash, they were good buddies.
That captured the emotion of that horrific day in our country's history.
Yeah, and I didn't know it until meeting them and listen. You see, the interesting piece for me is that I didn't listen to a lot of music unless it was out of Motown. So I wasn't even deeply aware of the Beatles music because it wasn't my genre. But I knew the music was good. I would hear it come through the airways of KCRW or whatever, WJMO in Cleveland. And, I heard some cool stuff. But my focus was on Stevie Wonder, Diana Ross and the Supremes, the Marvelettes, Martha Reeve, Marvin Gaye, and then some of the stuff out of Stax. That's the music that fed my soul.
Chances are, 'cause I wear a silly grin the moment you come into view. Chances are you think that I'm in love with you. Just because my composure sort of slips the moment that your lips meet mine. Chances are you think my heart's your Valentine.
And I hear it in your voice. I'm a big Donny Hathaway fan as well, and hear so much of the emotion and the wonderful tone of Donny Hathaway when I hear you sing.
When I first heard Donny, I said, "Who is this guy that sounds like me better?" So I literally studied his music and became I learned his music so deeply that when I started doing solo shows, that's half of my set was Donny Hathaway material. And I had to, stop, that's enough.
I think Someday We'll All Be Free might be my favorite song. I just absolutely love that song.
Oh, without a doubt. I'd never sung it too until Elena Reed, I don't know if you know who she was. She was in the musical with us. She was in 227, a TV show. Elena was like my mother on the road in Hair. So
really,
I've known her for years, and there's so many actors that came out of Hair. So many successful actors. Stan Shaw, the guy from out of Chicago. There were a bunch of people out of Chicago Hair who became really well-known actors. Anyway, the point is that Elena was like my Hair mom. When we all moved to New York and started pounding the pavement looking for work, I just hated that. Once again, I wasn't looking for this career. I was just following the path. So I would go to auditions and I'd sing, whatever I sang. Spinning Wheel was a big one that everybody was singing at the time. It was a big audition song. I don't know why. I remember that. And I don't know why everybody would sing that. But it was, and I said, if I hear another version of Spinning Wheel, I'm going to kill myself. So, you go to these auditions, you sit and wait and you sing. And you'd feel, I didn't feel like it was like my destiny to do musical theater. I ended up doing something off Broadway down at La Mama, which is a famous black theater, off Broadway theater, black owned and operated theater. I did something there. I did something with an amazing black writer named Vinette Carroll. For Vinette Carroll, called Bury the Dead, something she wrote. She was a famous sort of black lesbian writer. And my friend Benny Diggs, I was in a group called Revelation that signed to Atlantic Records, and we didn't do a lot of touring, and we were just recording, getting started. So we had to do stuff from money. So we took this theater gig, and we went with Vinette to Philly to do a run there in Philadelphia at the Forest Theater, and we did this thing called Bury the Dead. And we sang in the chorus for this cool musical about the women who suffered their husbands coming home from war. So Bury the Dead, and there's one song was called The Women, The Women, The Women. Why must it always come down to the women? So that's one of my favorite things I remember about, getting to do musical theater, but not really trying to do musical theater. So David and Lynn, the other girl from Cleveland, and so here are these three Midwesterners hit New York after we've toured for 2 years now. We toured for 2 years, and that national tour became a bus and truck, basically, just like one bus, one truck. Everybody got rid of their extra stuff, 2 suitcases max, and that's what we were living out of. And playing small tents, playing small theaters. And we ended up just, okay, this is done. We burnt this to the ground to go to New York and find other work. And the three of us, after having pounded the pavement to no end, decided to start sort of singing backing vocals for producers and doing producers' demos and whatever we could get our hands on. And we ended up doing this cool thing. A couple of producers called Hank Medris and Dave Apple. I don't know if either of them are still alive. I know Hank is dead, but I know Dave is dead for sure. But they were doing, first of all, they did Melissa Manchester, and they were produced her first records. So we're on her first single, Oh Heaven, How You Changed Me.
Really?
We're singing background vocals on that. And I would literally go to a jukebox and push whatever the number was to hear that, to hear us singing from a jukebox. It was a big deal.
Sure.
But then they ended up being the New York producers for Tony, Orlando, and Dawn, sending the music from New York to LA so that the Tony, Orlando, and Dawn could learn the songs for the show. So David and I would be singing the lead vocals for Tony. He would learn them from us, and we would sing the backing vocals for Dawn so that they could learn their parts.
Cool.
That became like a really cool gig. I'm just going in and doing the week's work for Tony, Orlando, and Dawn. And that spread into doing more commercial work because a lot of the commercial producers were in the same building or similar and some commercials were done by Medris and Apple as well. So that was becoming more and more studio work. And we realized this is where it's at. Musical theater, 8 shows a week is for the birds. Who wants to do that? We could do this and have a life as well. So we started hustling more and more work. And with those guys, with Medris and Apple, we were working for under scale. And I did a song for David, an ode to David. And one of the lines in the songs, we were in New York singing for less than scale.
It's a wonderful song, by the way.
Oh, you know that song?
Yeah, I do know that song.
So when he died, I had to pay homage to him on some way, acknowledge that was really my best and oldest and dearest friend for years and years and years, from the beginning of my career, literally. And I would not have been doing what I was doing in many cases had it not been for David. So we were doing commercials, we were doing Medris and Apple, and then we started getting up there. And we were singing, I was doing solos on jazz records for David Sanborn, for Jimmy Smith, but all the jazz guys, all the cool jazz guys, Al Di Meola, just so many, I can't name them all. Weber, what's his name? Jeff Weber, Stanley Clark, and all these cool guys loved our voices. And so we got to sing backing vocals on a lot of that stuff. And we brought James Taylor in to sing on Hideaway. James and David and I did. I guess we were on the road by then, but David had us singing. Oh, we were on the road with David Sanborn, by the way. David Sanborn
really?
In the original band that I was in with James Taylor. So it was David Leslie, Arnold McCuller singing backing vocals, David Sanborn doing the sax solos, and there was Clarence McDonald on keyboards who wrote and produced Lovely Day. There was all the guys from the section, but David Sanborn, Leland Sklar. That's when I met Leland, and Waddy Wachtel, Craig Durkee, who was originally in the section, and now they didn't have a keyboard player. But, what's his name? James's best friend, Danny Korchmar.
Yeah.
And Russ Kunkel. So they were the band, my very first band.
Oh, my.
The very first band I ever played with was these guys. I was 26, 27 years old when I got hired. David and I got hired to be a part of James's band. And that happened randomly, again, not looking for this, not trying to not, hey, James Taylor, hire us. Just doing sessions around New York. And a guitar player heard us and said, these guys are good. And I think we ended up doing a session. I used to ride a bike in New York, and I would ride my bike from studio to studio. And I would it was the quickest way to get from session to session. So if I was uptown doing a session and I needed to be in Chelsea, I just rode my bike there rather than trying to find a cab or get on the train. It was just so much easier to get around. I was so fit. I was 186 pounds, I think, and 6'2". Get out of here. So that was the beginning. I guess the pinnacle of my time in New York was those days, singing with Luther Vandross, singing with Patty Austin, singing with Valerie Simpson, singing with Gordon Grody, singing with all these amazing singers, Brenda and what's her husband's name? Brenda and Curtis and Fonzie. I mean, just all the great New York singers. Ava Cherry. There's another story. Ava Cherry was dating David Bowie. She ended up singing background for Luther. But I did an album. I wrote 2 songs on an album for her with my songwriting partner here in L.A. when I finally ended up in L.A., yeah. But just all these singers, anyway, in New York, we were doing sessions and commercials. And, people knew us. People knew David and Arnold. And people sought us out. And we were like, giddy schoolgirls when the phone would ring. Oh, God, do you know who's on the phone? Do you know who wants us to come to sing? Oh, my God. It was just that silly. We just did everything and gushed through it all. Near the end, my New York days in the end, we were doing a session with Kiki D. It was me and David and Kiki D on a session, and Kiki and I were snorting coke the whole time. So we were downtown doing a session. We were walking back uptown, and David and I stopped at a phone booth to call a dealer and try to get some more coke. He said, haven't you done enough? And I said, never enough. What are you talking about? I'm not dead. So that was a memorable time. But that was the time that I realized that it might be becoming a problem for me. But, I used probably another, I moved to LA in 77, I think. I was only in New York for 7 years, like from 72 to 77, something like that, maybe less, 6 years. And I was still using in LA when I got here. So the drug use escalated along with the work and the acclaim, and this odd trajectory was going like this.
Sure.
I was sort of going up and going down at the same time. So I ended up literally using until I was just in the bedroom and the bathroom and just would leave the house to go get more cocaine. And I moved in a girl who was selling heroin, so I did that for a while. Some dealers came and robbed my house and took all my watch collection and my mother's diamonds and all this stuff, But heartbreaking, but still didn't stop my using. I just, had to kick her out because I didn't want the Colombian heroin dealers back in my life. But one day on a tour rehearsal, I got ready. I was getting ready for the road, and I went to rehearsal, and I got to rehearsal, and James looked at my arms. He says, and he had finally gotten clean the year before, and I didn't know what he had done. I didn't know how he had done it, but he literally went from this bloated alcoholic to, his normal self again, obsessed with exercise and fitness. Yeah. And I said, what did you do? Go to a fat farm? I thought we had just heard about Betty Ford and all the stars were going there, and Betty herself, and we were realizing that people were getting clean. And that was my first sort of introduction to the option of recovery,
Yeah.
He said, you'll stop when you're ready. Now, I don't know of any other employer that would know that you're using drugs that would let you continue until you were ready to quit. I mean, It's just unheard of. That was I think that the reason why I was able to use for as long as I was, because we were doing it at work. It was like, it was rewarded almost. I was carrying the cocaine for James and I. We were getting high together. We had some crazy scenes with, crazy people. And at some point, oddly enough, James's sponsor was Michael Brecker. Michael Brecker took James Taylor his first meeting. And James was introduced to Narcotics Anonymous in that first meeting. And so as a result of his wanting to stay clean and stay in recovery, he had the tour manager, when we were on the road, take him to meetings on the days off. And he would get on the bus. We'd do a night ride. He'd come in. I just came from a meeting. Look, here's my 90-day chip. And I'm like, dude, what is that? What does it mean? And who are you?
Were you seeing a transformation of him before your eyes during all of this?
Yes. So that was November. He got clean in November 83. And oddly enough, literally a year later, I got clean. And it wasn't because, James, if James can do it, I can do it. It was just that little seed that was planted. That one seed was the phone call, me trying to get more coke in New York. The second seed was James saying to me, you'll quit when you're ready. And then I see him actually do the work and get see his body and his demeanor and his music even improved. He sounded better, was playing better, and was moving better and had his life back. And, management, everybody was overjoyed.
Come calling if you're out there banging and bawling. Hard time gonna come calling, put your back behind the wall. Hard time gonna come calling, put you on your knees like the good Lord calling you. Hard time gonna come call, put your back behind the wall. Put you back behind the wall.
Did you feel like, and I'll tell you just personally, alcohol is my vice. That is what, and I don't miss alcohol at all. Actually, I'm good with it. The two things where I feel like I struggle, one is that number one, have so many regrets of all of the time I wasted as a musician being drunk on gigs, that I feel like I wasted so much of my musical career just feeling like I needed to be drunk to do it. And secondly, I almost feel like I have to relearn a little bit to be able to do it without the substance there.
I was working the whole time. So I didn't lose everything like a lot of people. I didn't stop working. I didn't lose my house or my car or my bank account. All that shit happened after I got clean, oddly enough. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't even that. I don't think it happened for James. There was an interesting segue out of using and into recovery that sort of fed the music and fed the spirit of it all. So, I hear people say Bonnie Raitt is one of them, and I think she was afraid she was going to lose her chops because all her best music was done getting loaded or being loaded or while loaded. It's just interesting. I guess if the art and the talent is there, it doesn't go away because of that fear of not being able to play again or write again or create again.
Yeah. And that's where I am. And I didn't get sober and stop playing, but it's just kind of the life circumstance that I have. But I'm noticing now that I'm playing more again, how much more I enjoy it than I did before. I feel so much more present in every aspect of my life, especially playing and singing. It's almost like a rebirth in doing that. I do think that there's a misconception there that substances take you to a place where you can find a creative part of you that may not. I don't buy that, and I don't buy into that people say.
If you look at the documentary on Sly Stone, which I don't know if you've seen that, it's a great example of, he played the music. All of his best music was while he was loaded, and he didn't stop. He didn't stop until he had to stop. And when he stopped, he was kind of done with music. But God, all his best music was done high. And I was in hotel rooms thinking, oh, I'm going to die like Janis Joplin or Jimi Hendrix or Billie Holiday. These are your drug addicted heroes, you know? And you think, oh, but no one's going to fucking know who I am. That's the difference. If I die in a hotel room, they'll just like call the coroner and say, get him out of here. We got a guest waiting in the lobby, you know?
Did your love of performing improve after you were sober? Did you find a new passion for it after that?
Without a doubt. And some of it happened even before, but when I started studying voice, I found a voice teacher in LA that I loved, and he was from the same school. Teachers, Keith David was the teacher in New York, and I introduced Keith to James. James started studying voice training with Keith. I was studying with Nolan Van Wey, and I introduced Nolan Van Wey to Linda Ronstadt, who then became hooked on this same method. And we were all sort of studying with this guy, this method, I should say. And so was Stevie Wonder, so was Michael Jackson, so was Dee Dee Bridgewater. They were studying under another famous teacher, Florence Riggs, Seth Riggs. Florence still teaches. Seth Riggs was the teacher for Michael and Stevie and a lot of other people. So this method was the true best vocal method, you know, there was. And it's kind of a secret, kind of a well-kept secret. And, you know, as a result of the years I was training, and after my teacher died, I put together my tapes and created a voice warm-up app called Vocalese. We've changed it. We've increased the content. I haven't touched it in a while, though. I try to keep it up to code so that people can still use it. I try not to let it go because it sells. I mean, I got a $132 check from Europe, you know, a couple of days ago, you know, $10 a pop, but you know, it's not selling like hotcakes, but it's a consistent buy for performers and theater people. And just Jackson Brown said to me, if I only had known about this method earlier in my career, I would not have suffered so much. Now I'm singing with ease. And I sat with Jackson and gave him lessons backstage, but mainly he downloaded the app at Linda's request, you know. And I don't know if you've ever seen a documentary that she did that says that Arnold McCuller is the best voice teacher in LA.
Yeah, I have seen that.
It's just not true. You know, I'm just passing on what I learned, you know. And I went on the road with Linda, and we would warm up backstage, Linda and I and Marlena. And it was just a way of life. Warming up backstage became a way of life for a lot of us. Bonnie does it. I mean, it's funny that these old people can still sing and tour because they're actually taking care of their instrument.
And as I'm getting older, I'm experiencing that. Like it is time can be difficult on your voice, on your instrument.
Yeah.
So yeah, I understand the importance of that.
Yeah. I haven't been singing a lot. I've been just doing the recovery work. And I woke up this morning, I was trying to just do some meditate, and I was doing some ohms, you know, and they were raggedy ohms. I said to myself, would you consider, Arnold, continuing to warm up, because you want to, you know, keep that instrument in good shape? This was the voice that came to me this morning. How
long were you in James's band? 40 plus years?
52 years, I counted.
What?
Yeah. Started in 77, and my last gig with him was in 2022. And I just sat in with the band because Dorian missed a show when they were on in LA on this coast. There was a place called Yamava, a casino, and I sat in with them in my hometown. I said, "You're not going to come to LA."
I would be remiss talking about the incredible band that you all had with James without. I studied percussion, was a drummer for many years too, and I have to talk about Carlos Vega, probably the drummer I miss the most. Just what an unbelievable musician
he was, amazing.
And an incredible player he was.
He was my second drummer, I think, with James. It was from Russ Kunkel, No, that's not true, because there was Ricky Murata in between. Russ Kunkel, Ricky Murata, and then Carlos. And when Carlos joined the band, it was like, finally, we've arrived. This is the band. This is the drummer. You know, he was just so unique and so specific and so easy. I've never seen anybody play drums so effortlessly, you know? And he was just one of my favorite people to be on the road with. He was so good.
Sun comes up about 10 in the morning. Sun goes down, 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 right about 3 in the day. And you fill your car with whatever beer to brew you're drinking. You spend your life digging coal from the bottom of your grave. In the deep dark hills of eastern Kentucky, that's the place where I trace my bloodline. And it's there I read on a hillside gravestone, you will never leave Harlan alive.
What led you to make the decision to move in this direction with your career?
I realized that the road was not feeding me the way it used to. The music was beautiful, but it got to the point where I was like, I can't sing this song another time. I distinctly, some of the singers and I will tell you that on sometimes, if you're just singing an ooh or an ah, it feels as though you could almost drift away and fall asleep on stage and close your eyes and get that quiet. Whereas, oh my God, you wake up and the song's ended. And you say, how did I get through that, you know?
Coach.
Drug and alcohol counseling. It was called the Brining Institute. And I started practicing in 2016, I think. 2016. It was before I moved to Palm Springs even. And I was on the road with this book, and just the work got too busy that I sort of put it aside. But I had done some studying, and I sort of did half, not enough credits to get credentialed, but I was on my way. And then I said, I got to pick this up again. Oh, I know what it was. At some point during the pandemic, I moved down to Palm Springs in 2018. And I was partnered at the time. You know, it was great. I moved down here with all the boxes in the garage, and then I flew to Australia and left my friend with all the stuff to do. So luckily, when I got home, it was kind of unpacked and done. And then we disrupted to doing renovations, you know. But I think during the pandemic or just before it, a friend of mine was saying, you're so committed to your recovery and to all the sponsors. I had, like, at the time, I have 17 sponsors now. I work with men all the time, and I'm helping people on the road. People will come to me and say, you know, yeah, I know I can talk to you. Crew members and band members. There was a guy in Phil Collins' band, still clean today, a trumpet player, said, I've seen you, I've watched what you do, and I've watched the way you carry yourself, and I want that. You know, he says, I can't stop using coke, and I need your help. So I helped a guy, you know, in the band, on the road. So I said, okay, this is a beautiful thing. You know, I get this great feeling from being able to do this within 4 people, and I should take advantage of it. And so one of my friends, one of my sponsee brothers, a guy named Ken Sikowski, and his partner, Bruce Lupin, had a company called Intelliky Recovery. And interventions were, once again, furthest thing from my mind. I just wanted to learn a little bit about drug and alcohol counseling. But the intervention piece was new to me, and I didn't know what that was. So they taught me how they go through the process of intervening and what it takes, how to work with the families and stuff. And I started working with Bruce and Ken, and I would do the second chair on interventions. And I said, this is powerful work. And this is really helping people. It's helping the family. It's helping the identified patient or the person who's, you know, suffering. And I think this is a great way to make a living. Not necessarily a way to make a living, but a way to make a difference. How's that? because it wasn't about making a living doing this. Making way less money than I was, but I feel so much more empowered. And the people I work with have convinced me that, what I'm doing is good work, and they said, you're the only one who can do what you do. Once again, it's kind of like having a voice, and you're the only one who could really sing what you sing, and no one can imitate you. They can try, but people go back to the original.
I can't help but notice this beautiful parallel of how your music career just kind of organically started.
A very clear course if we stay on it. We don't have to do anything but stay open to what the universe has got to bring us, is offering us, and has asked for us to learn and to teach and to whatever. The education piece is important. Here I was in my late 60s studying for the first time since high school and taking tests and writing papers. And it was scary because it was completely new territory, but I just stayed the course. And I made mistakes, and I asked for help. And just like any other recovering person would do, I just did it a step at a time. I kind of wanted to do it originally for artists and people who were musicians. And I thought I wanted to help young Black kids. I wanted to help the families of, as an interventionist, I was trying to go after the sports figures, the musicians, and that kind of thing. And I thought this would be a good niche for me, but it just didn't pan out. And I don't think it was such a narrow window that it wasn't big enough for me to build a career out of right away anyway. I think eventually maybe that'll be the case, but not right now. I don't know if you know Steve Gadd, but his son, I worked with him. I intervened on him. I got him into rehab from the road because Steve brought him out on the road thinking, okay, I'll just keep him with me and that'll keep him clean. Daddy Steve, no, that's not going to make a difference. Your son is a 27-year-old wannabe rock and roller drummer like you, but is got a strong addiction to opiates, and he will find them wherever he can. And 3 times we found him passed out and had to revive him on the road. And the 3rd time I said, this has got to stop, Steve. We got to get help for this kid. So I arranged for someone to pick him up in LA, take him to a rehab. And James told me at that time, he said, this is the work you're supposed to be doing.
When I'm not doing this, I'm also a technology director at a school here in St. Louis. So I spend a lot of time talking with families and students about being healthy on using internet and social media and all that. Are you finding that in 2025, social media technology devices is magnifying the urge, the possibility of addiction in terms of, I see pitfalls with social media just on its own.
There are actual meetings for people who are Electronics Anonymous. It's its own group of recovering people, Electronics Anonymous. And there are people who have come into Narcotics Anonymous, which is just about compulsive behavior, obsessive behavior. People who have come into NA with just an addiction to electronics. They are looking for help from recovering people to help them stop this compulsive behavior. And there are 12-step programs for everything, literally everything.
Wow.
And which means that it's basically just a compulsive obsessive disorder, a disease that's a disease of the brain, and it's got nothing to do with the substance.
It's no wonder the thunder strikes fear, and I can't hold you when you aren't here. I wish on a star that you were near, but wishes just fade away. Lift me up and take me there, 'cause there's no worry and not
before we go, Arnold, I wanted to also ask you about the organization Harmonium that I know you work with, and been reading up about this, and it's a really powerful organization, and I'd love if you could maybe talk a moment to my listeners about what that organization is and what kind of work you all do.
I met Paul Whelan on an online meeting that was created during the pandemic also for musicians who were sitting at home with nothing to do. And it wasn't just musicians, it was front of house guys, it was agents, it was managers, it was crew guys, lighting directors. They all came together on Monday at 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock East Coast time, and had a meeting. And it was all fellowships and all kinds of people living and working in recovery. So Paul Whelan was on this meeting, and we befriended one another. And he said, "I want you to be on my board. I just want you to be on my board." Well, what am I going to do? Yeah, well, just be on the board. That's what I want. So I'm on the board, and I didn't even know what they were doing until later. I realized how massive, how important they were. I first saw recovery, the presence of recovery tents or rooms at music, as from Music Cares. They would do a place at the Grammys. They would do a tent at the Grammys and at the Oscars and at all the big awards. And then when I toured with Ry Cooder and we opened for Bob Dylan and the Dead, I saw the Wharf Rats. I discovered that there was this huge NA flag and these people were circled, and no one else was allowed in, unless they were, sober and clean. So they gathered, but they loved the Grateful Dead, but they wanted nothing to do with the drugs and alcohol. So I saw the Wharf Rats, and I said, well, this is interesting. And then I met, these guys at Harmonium, and they said, this is what we do. We set up tents at festivals and yellow balloon tables at concerts. So I said, well, would you guys do a James Taylor tour? Would you do a tour with me? And I would sort of help facilitate the tables for you guys and make sure you were set up at every city. And they said, yeah, we have volunteers who would love to see the show and also work the show. So was one of my first gigs at Harmonium, was bringing in the yellow table setups and the arenas and the stadiums. Some places were better than others. Some places were more receptive to it than others, but everybody donated to Harmonium and helped pay for the transport of the volunteers and just the stickers and balloons that we were passing out, or the stickers and information about recovery. If you need help, dial this number, whatever. So that's how I got involved with Harmonium, and I'm still involved, I guess. But yeah. I've met so many wonderful people. Pat Ochoa is someone I've actually done interventions at his place, and he's a member, and he and I are good friends now. He's in Redlands, California, and we've hung out together, and he's got at least 20 years recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous, and he is a big proponent of this Harmonium and the festivals. He does a lot of the festivals.
What a fantastic organization, and just a way for people to feel supported and be present, and not feeling like you have to stop your life because you're sober.
Yeah, and some people are very afraid of going to a concert because they would just go. In the past, they would just go to get wasted.
I was one of them. I was one of them. And I will tell you, the first few concerts I went to, being sober, I was terrified because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this.
Yeah, and now what do I do?
Now what do I do? But now
I guess you can just listen to the music.
I guess I can just listen to the music, right? Exactly. And remember it the next day. How wonderful is that?
Exactly.
Right?
You don't even have to videotape the whole thing.
Right.
But sit there and take it in, It just drives you crazy, and Bonnie won't allow it people just sitting and taping the show rather than sitting and enjoying the show. You know, she said you have to put your cameras and your phones down, and at the end of the show, we'll give you an opportunity to take a picture of us bowing. But you're not going to videotape this show. You're going to watch and listen to the show.
Arnold, I can't thank you enough. This has been an honor to get to sit.
So much fun
to hang out with you today, and just thank you for your wisdom and what you, first of all, what you've done musically for all of us, but now what you're doing to help people in need and help people rewrite the next chapter of their life. And
exactly.
I just can't thank you enough for that. And, you know, someone who I feel like I'm kind of new on this path, it's so encouraging to see someone like yourself that has managed to not only stay clean as long as you have, but using it to impact others. And myself is one of them. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very, very much.
Best of luck to you.
You too.